The weddings we're about to see certainly didn't go as planned. Today's video, narrated by Greg, is on the top 5 wedding disasters.
Number 5. A fiery wedding. A Canadian couple was getting ready to get married at a luxury resort in Liverpool, Nova Scotia. They were moments away from their ceremony, and the bride was zipping up her dress when the groom's mother came to tell her that something was wrong. A police officer soon showed up, letting them know that the place had caught fire and was burning down, and everyone had to evacuate immediately. It's still unclear how the fire started, but it spread rapidly because of the building's wooden frame. Determined to go through with the wedding, the couple transferred to another building and exchanged their vows there. They took it all in stride and didn't miss the opportunity to take a wedding photo in front of their burning venue. Number 4. A wedding that crashed a plane. An Italian couple had a special idea in mind for the bouquet throwing part of their wedding party at a park near Livorno. They decided to hire a microlight plane to glide above the women guests while throwing the bouquet. What the couple and planners didn't predict, though, was the flowers getting sucked into the plane's engine and causing it to catch on fire and explode. The plane plummeted and crashed into a hostel. The pilot, as well as the 50 guests in the hostel, somehow managed to get through it unharmed, but the plane passenger charged with throwing the bouquet suffered serious injuries. He was immediately taken to a hospital, and it's unknown if and how the reception continued after the disastrous event. Number 3. A grand entrance gone wrong. There are all sorts of wild ideas that people come up with when trying to make their wedding as special of an occasion as possible. While the intention seems harmless enough, it can lead to some unpredictable and potentially dangerous accidents. This couple decided to make an impression by making a grand entrance of ziplining into the event. You can probably tell where the accident part comes in. The bride took off slowly, and it seems like it was going well until the groom started catching up with her. Something made him glide down the zipline at double the speed that she was moving at, and he was panicking right before he crashed into her and fell to the ground. You could say that the moment was ruined. Both of them seemed to have gone through it unharmed, but the groom was lucky to not have a rougher landing. As a result, we have been left with the legacy of a YouTube video that has been making the rounds on the internet ever since the unfortunate event. Number 2. A fairy tale wedding. One of England's most luxurious wedding venues, the Allerton Castle near Harrogate, was all set to accommodate as lovely and dignified a wedding as ever within its elegant Gothic walls. If someone had told the decorators and the wedding planners that the fairy tale setting would end up as a backdrop to people throwing food at each other and the bride getting punched straight in the face, they wouldn't have believed them. Things already started getting heated early on in the evening at the wedding feast. The Michelin star chef-prepared lobster thermidor was starting to get thrown around as a prelude to the brawl that was about to happen. As the party moved to the dance floor, an argument between the members of the bride's and groom's families got increasingly more heated and erupted into a full-blown fight, with police being called 3 times. The bride was allegedly punched in the face in the process and had to visit a nearby hospital. Police had to be called once again when a guest kicked the venue's doors down that had been locked by the venue's staff. The staff even removed candles from the place in fear of the guests setting fire to it. Needless to say, they were not pleased. A source at the venue commented, "To say they behaved like peasants with money is an understatement. They were obnoxious and disgusting. It was more like big fat gypsy wedding than our usual clientele." Number 1. 2 weddings and a funeral. A bar and hotel in Philadelphia was operating as usual, not anticipating that the wedding guests that were slowly coming in would disturb the relaxed atmosphere substantially. Soon it became apparent that the guests were actually coming from 2 different weddings, and what started with relatives from one wedding having an argument grew into the guests from the other wedding joining in. As it's regular with drunk people, it didn't take long before throwing words at each other turned into throwing fists, and the brawl spilled all the way into the hotel lobby and further. A boy in the lobby managed to film it on his iPhone. He said that he could hear something was wrong all the way from his second-floor hotel room. About 2 a.m., shouts started echoing through the hotel, and he woke up his family and went into the hallway overlooking the lobby. which is where he filmed a part of the commotion. A bunch of policemen were swarming in and storming the hallways. People went from just fighting each other to fighting back against the police, too. It got so out of hand that officers were called in from all over the city. Extra patrols were called in twice as the police got outnumbered by the fighting mob. The boy managed to film a guy fighting several officers, and the officers had to eventually tase him in order to get him to calm down. The guy was one of 3 people arrested that night, but the police spokesman said that they would have charged all of the 75 to 100 people involved with disorderly conduct if they could. Even the bride got involved and was knocked over by police. The boy can even be heard in the video saying they just decked the bride. Later in an interview, he said that the police didn't seem to have used excessive force though. The police weren't able to figure out exactly what caused the relatives to start fighting, but it seemed that too much alcohol had a lot to do with it. Then to add to all of this chaos, the bride's 57-year-old uncle suffered a fatal heart attack while trying to escape from the commotion, and he was pronounced dead at Jefferson Hospital. It was uncertain whether he participated in the fight. This wedding was not just disastrous, it was tragic, and it spoke volumes to how crazy some people get with too much alcohol in them. Honorable mentions. A disastrous joke. Everything was going well at the lovely castle wedding of a couple in Austria. The ceremony was well under its way. The procession was done and the opening words were said. Then they came to the crucial moment, the I do's. That's when everyone discovered that the bride was feeling a bit humorous. To the question of, "Do you take this man for your husband?" she jokingly replied, "I don't," before immediately correcting herself. It turns out that the Austrian law forbids the continuation of a wedding ceremony if either party replies to the key question negatively in order to prevent forced marriages. The wedding has to be canceled and cannot be attempted again before 10 weeks have passed. So the officiating registrar couldn't go on with the wedding and canceled it despite the embarrassed bride's protests. Guests had to return home since nothing could be done to change the registrar's decision. The bride was quoted as saying, "In retrospect, it was probably not that funny." A sandstorm wedding. Imagine a sandstorm rising just when you're about to conclude your wedding ceremony. That's just what happened to this couple, but they didn't give up and they managed to get through the ceremony. The couple was getting married at an outdoor venue in Florence, Arizona. The persistent wind seemed manageable enough, so they continued with the wedding and exchanged their vows accordingly. Then they got to the part with a symbolic sand ceremony, where the bride and groom pour sand from separate cups into one cup, representing the union of their lives and family. Ironically enough, it was right at that point that the wind started blowing viciously, surrounding everything with dust and blinding everybody present. The bride's veil was tossed around everywhere, and the groom barely kept his eyes open and asked the officiator to speed things up. The pair were pronounced husband and wife, shared a brief kiss, and quickly rushed out of the place.
I hope you enjoyed today's video. Be sure to subscribe for more and check out some of our previous uploads.